The air inside the studio carried that unmistakable buzz of live television, a blend of excitement, tension, and unpredictability. The set gleamed under studio lights, polished to perfection, and the audience waited with bated breath as two of America's most recognizable figures sat opposite one another. On one side, Barack Obama, calm, collected, the epitome of quiet authority. On the other, Ivanka Trump, poised, confident, and unflinchingly direct, her posture straight, her words sharp before she even spoke. The discussion had started cordially enough. The host had introduced them both, mentioning that tonight's topic would center around modern leadership and the future of America. But the moment Ivanka leaned forward, her eyes narrowing just slightly, everyone in the studio sensed something was about to happen. With all due respect, she began, her voice smooth but edged with challenge, your leadership was always more about presentation than performance. You gave wonderful speeches, yes. You inspired hope, you rallied people, but in the end, what did they really get? 8 years of promises that didn't materialize. A struggling middle class, broken systems. It was style over substance. A few audience members shifted uncomfortably. Some murmured, some even clapped. Ivanka's supporters were loud, certain that her words would pierce through the polished armor of the former president. But Obama didn't flinch, he didn't even blink, he simply smiled, that quiet, almost mischievous smile that had become his signature. His body language was effortless, his demeanor unbothered. He adjusted his cufflink, then his tie, as if giving her the stage, allowing her to finish every sentence. I think, Ivanka continued, now encouraged by his silence, that the American people got tired of empty inspiration. You told them change was coming, but what they saw was bureaucracy and excuses. That's not leadership, that's performance art. You gave the world a good speech, but not a good result. Her tone grew bolder with each word, and even the host looked between them nervously, sensing that the interview had left its script far behind. When she finished, Ivanka leaned back, crossing one leg over the other, waiting, no, daring, him to respond. Obama finally exhaled softly, his fingers steepled in thought. The audience was dead silent now. Every eye, every camera, every microphone hung on what he might say. Then he spoke, calm, steady, deliberate. Ivanka, he said, with the kind of warmth that somehow carried more weight than anger ever could, you're right about one thing, words matter. But so does understanding what they stand for. Her brow furrowed slightly, sensing where this was headed. He continued, you see, leadership isn't about managing a company, or building a brand. It's not about how many people repeat your slogan or buy what you're selling. It's about people, real people, and what you leave behind for them when you're gone. The crowd leaned forward. The tone in the room had changed. Obama's voice deepened just a little, not louder, but more commanding. When I spoke about hope, it wasn't because I thought speeches alone could fix everything. It was because I understood that leadership starts with belief. If you can't help people believe in something bigger than themselves, you'll never move a nation forward. Ivanka tried to interject, but Obama raised a finger slightly, not rudely, but enough to keep the floor. You talked about results, he said, eyes now locked onto hers. But tell me, what result matters more than restoring faith in what's possible? When I walked into office, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. We stopped that. We built back confidence. We passed healthcare reform so that millions of families didn't have to go bankrupt just to see a doctor. Now, maybe that doesn't fit neatly into a marketing slogan, but to the people who could finally afford medicine for their children, that was everything. A wave of applause rose from the audience, soft at first, then swelling as he spoke. Ivanka's expression stiffened, polite but unsettled. She hadn't expected him to respond with such precision. Obama leaned forward slightly, lowering his tone to something intimate, almost conversational. You mentioned style over substance. But here's the truth. When you lead a nation, not a corporation, you can't fire your problems. You can't hide behind numbers on a spreadsheet. Every decision affects someone's life, someone's family, someone's future. The crowd was completely silent now. Leadership, he continued, isn't about who can talk louder, or who can win an argument on TV. It's about who can make the hard decisions when the cameras are off. And when you've had to carry the weight of a nation, not a brand, not a company, then you'll understand the difference. The last line hit like a lightning bolt. The audience gasped collectively before erupting into applause. The host, visibly wide-eyed, didn't even attempt to interrupt. Ivanka blinked, her perfectly composed expression faltering for a fraction of a second. She tried to recover with a polite smile, but it was too late, the audience had already chosen its victor. Obama leaned back in his chair, that faint smile still on his lips. "I don't expect everyone to agree with everything I did," he said lightly, "but one thing I'll never apologize for is believing in the power of people to do better when they're given the chance." The crowd rose to its feet. Applause thundered. Even some of Ivanka's supporters couldn't help but join in. It wasn't just the content of his words, it was the poise, the timing, the sheer command of the moment. Ivanka shifted slightly, regaining her composure. "Well," she said, her voice quieter now, "that's certainly one way to look at it." Obama chuckled softly. "That's the great thing about democracy, everyone gets their way to look at it." Laughter rippled through the audience. The tension dissolved, replaced with admiration for a man who had just dismantled a high-profile critique without raising his voice, without insult, without ego, just grace and intellect. As the segment wrapped, the host thanked both guests, but everyone knew what they had just witnessed. It wasn't a debate, it was a masterclass in leadership under fire. Obama had taken Ivanka's pointed criticism, words meant to diminish his legacy, and turned them into a powerful reaffirmation of it. When the cameras cut, Obama extended his hand across the table. Ivanka hesitated for just a second before shaking it, offering a tight smile. "You're good at this," she said, almost as a compliment, almost as a warning. He smiled back, eyes kind but unyielding. "I've had some practice." And as they stood, the studio audience still buzzing from what they'd just seen, one thing was unmistakable: Ivanka Trump had tried to challenge Barack Obama's leadership, but in just 5 seconds, with calm and clarity, he had crushed her argument so completely that it would echo far beyond that studio. The moment would be replayed, analyzed, and quoted for days, but for those who witnessed it live, it was already unforgettable. The moment the cameras stopped rolling, the studio erupted into chatter. Audience members leaned over to one another, whispering with the excitement of people who knew they'd just witnessed something historic. Crew members exchanged glances, shaking their heads in disbelief, while producers scrambled to get post-show clips uploaded. Within minutes, that 5-second exchange between Ivanka Trump and Barack Obama became the single most talked about moment of the night. By the time the episode ended, social media had already exploded. The clip hit Twitter first, posted by a fan account with the caption, "Obama ends Ivanka's argument in 5 seconds flat." Within 20 minutes, it had over 1 million views. Hashtags like #Obama crushes Ivanka, #5-second takedown, and #leadership masterclass trended across platforms. Comment sections flooded with everything from shock to admiration. 5 seconds of calm destroyed 5 minutes of arrogance, one user wrote. "Obama just gave a free TED Talk on composure," another posted. Memes began circulating, one showing Obama's composed face under the caption, "Grace under pressure," and another comparing Ivanka's frozen smile to a Windows error screen. Cable news jumped in almost immediately. CNN aired the clip on repeat during their evening segment. Fox News, while defending Ivanka, still couldn't resist showing the moment, the ratings were too good to ignore. Political commentators dissected it from every possible angle. Some said Ivanka had walked into a trap she didn't realize existed. Others argued that Obama's mastery of tone and timing turned what could have been a debate into a clinic on leadership. By midnight, the clip had crossed 50 million views across all platforms. Every outlet was replaying it, and Obama's single line, "When you've had to manage a nation, not a brand, you'll understand the difference," was suddenly everywhere. It was on t-shirts, posters, tweets, and even graffiti. Ivanka's team, meanwhile, went into immediate damage control. Her communications director released a statement insisting that her comments had been misinterpreted, and that she had deep respect for President Obama's public service. But the internet was merciless. Screenshots of her initial words flooded back, side by side with Obama's calm rebuttal. The next morning, Ivanka appeared visibly composed on a morning news program, but the strain was clear. The host, gentle at first, couldn't resist addressing the viral storm. "You've seen the reaction online," the host said. "Do you regret saying what you did?" Ivanka smiled tightly. "I don't regret standing by my opinion," she replied. "But I think people missed my point. My criticism wasn't personal. I was speaking about a broader question of results, not inspiration." It was a measured answer, one clearly rehearsed, but even as she spoke, social media wasn't buying it. Clips of Obama's calm dismantling of her argument were still being shared thousands of times per minute. The internet had already made up its mind. Meanwhile, Barack Obama went on with his life as though nothing unusual had happened. The next morning, he was photographed at a cafe in Georgetown, wearing sunglasses and a relaxed smile, sipping his coffee. Reporters swarmed him as he left, one shouting, "Mr. President, any thoughts on the viral moment with Ivanka Trump?" Obama grinned, shaking his head. "Ah, you guys are always looking for drama," he said lightly. "I just answered a question." That humility only made the internet love him more. News outlets described it as the coolest comeback in political history. Public speakers and debate coaches began using the exchange as a teaching tool. "Watch how he pauses before replying," one analyst noted. "He doesn't interrupt, he doesn't escalate, he disarms her with calm precision." Even critics who didn't share his politics admitted that his poise was impressive. A conservative columnist wrote, "You don't have to agree with Obama to acknowledge he's a master communicator." Ivanka challenged him on leadership, and he showed her exactly what leadership looks like. Behind the scenes, Obama's former staffers shared knowing smiles. They'd seen that look on his face before, the same quiet confidence that carried him through crises, debates, and press conferences for 8 years. "He doesn't need to win by volume," one former aide commented. "He wins by gravity." Days passed, but the moment refused to die down. Comedy shows replayed it endlessly. On The Late Show, a parody skit recreated the exchange with exaggerated dramatics, ending with the host dropping a fake microphone. On TikTok, creators made mashups using Obama's line as a punchline to clips of people losing arguments in everyday life. But beyond the jokes, something deeper was happening. Commentators began analyzing why that single moment resonated so strongly. It wasn't just about politics, it was about composure, control, and the rare ability to respond to confrontation without hostility. In a world full of noise and outrage, Obama's restraint felt like power. A week later, during a scheduled talk at Stanford University, Obama was asked by a student about the viral exchange. The audience laughed even before the question ended. Obama smiled, waited for the laughter to die down, and said, "You know, sometimes the best response is just to stay grounded. If you're secure in what you've done, you don't need to shout about it." Applause broke out. He continued, "We live in an age where everyone wants the last word. But leadership isn't about the last word, it's about the lasting impact." That line went viral too. Ivanka, meanwhile, tried to shift the narrative. In a later interview, she remarked, "President Obama has the advantage of hindsight. It's always easier to talk about leadership once you're out of office." It was a subtle jab, but it didn't land. Instead, her comment drew comparisons to Obama's calm maturity. Commenters pointed out that every attempt she made to defend herself only made the contrast sharper. Within 2 weeks, major outlets like The Atlantic and Time published think pieces dissecting the exchange. The Atlantic titled theirs, "5 Seconds That Redefined Composure." Time's headline read, "Obama reminds the world what leadership sounds like." And then, as if sealing the moment into history, late-night host Trevor Noah summarized it perfectly, Ivanka Trump tried to brand leadership. Obama reminded her it can't be trademarked. Months later, clips from that night were still circulating. It became a kind of cultural shorthand, a way to describe being effortlessly outclassed in an argument. The phrase, "pulled an Obama," entered online slang, meaning to win with calm precision instead of anger. For Obama, it was never about winning at all. When asked in a podcast interview what he thought of the phrase, "crushing Ivanka," he chuckled softly. "You know, I don't think about it that way," he said. "We're all just trying to figure out how to talk to each other better. If we can do that without tearing each other down, that's leadership." The host laughed, "But it did look like you tore her argument down pretty effectively." Obama laughed back, "Well, I try to let the facts do the talking." And that was the essence of it, why people couldn't stop replaying those 5 seconds. In an era of heated arguments, viral outrage, and endless talking heads, Barack Obama had shown what it meant to stand tall under pressure. He didn't match attack with attack, or ego with ego. He let composure speak louder than criticism. Ivanka's words might have sparked the fire, but Obama's response turned it into a masterclass, one that reminded millions of viewers around the world that true strength doesn't come from volume, it comes from control. And so, that night on live television became more than just a headline. It became a symbol, a moment when arrogance met grace, when brand met backbone, and when a calm 5-second reply from a former president reminded everyone what real leadership looks like.